Hi Rob, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all well. So today we're out in the garden. I'm amongst my jungle of trees. I've got over 150 trees now in pots. So today's video is going to be all about how to grow trees in pots with the intentions of turning them into bonsai in the future. So I see this question a lot on social media. I've got a seedling or something. They put it in a pot. The first bit of advice someone will give them is to stick it in the ground for 5 or 10 years. That's pretty useless advice to most people, especially if you've got nowhere to put it in the ground. So I hopefully answer any questions in this video about how to get started in bonsai. I'm no expert, but first things first, you've got to know how to grow a tree in a pot. Okay, so this is where I keep most of my smaller trees. And as you can see, I've got loads of trees in various different stages. Most of the intention of turning into bonsai. A lot of them, well, most of them are not actually in bonsai pots yet. I've got a few which I've put in little pots. I'll show you this one. This is a little silver birch, and this is only about 3 or 4 years old. So you can achieve a decent looking bonsai tree, or I think it looks good anyway. So, but it's probably not ideal for bonsai. But there's an oak tree here as well, which I've grown from seed. That's about 6 years old now. We did a video on that one as well with the drastic bend and various other things. I do a lot from cuttings. I also salvage a lot of trees from where I work because I'm a gardener. So I do a lot of ground clearance and stuff. So every time I see something, I can't resist putting it in a pot. So I just want to talk to you today about how I keep the trees under control, because you've got to do some pruning. You can't just let a tree grow for 5 or 10 years, even if it's in a pot, because you'll have to upgrade and upgrade the pot, and by the end of it, you'll have a huge barrel with a tree in it. So I'll bring you in and I'll show you a bit more. Okay, so the Japanese maples are a good example. These are coming into their third year, and they would be a lot bigger by now if I hadn't pruned them. And I've also put a bit of wire on this one to bend the trunk, but it's up to you. It depends how big you want it to get. For instance, I've got a chestnut tree here. I know it's not an ideal candidate for bonsai, but you can bonsai anything. So I haven't actually pruned this yet. I'll just let it grow, and I'm upgrading the pot and letting it thicken up. It's getting quite thick now, so soon I'll be giving it its first prune, and most likely all I will do is cut the top off and let it bush out more. I've got a field maple here, again growing from seed, and this is coming into its third year, believe it or not. So the first year, almost 2 years, I didn't prune it at all. Then last year, all I did was cut the top off there, and that's made all this go mad down here. And a little while ago, I just tipped the ends of these branches, and you can see how it's back budding, and when you cut the end, it forces all the growth further back to come out. There's a good example. So once you've got it quite thick, let it grow for the first year or two, and then cut the top off. It doesn't matter how it grows then, because we'll be cutting all this back later on anyway. There's a maple there which I haven't touched. I've only given it a light prune to clear out the middle. So it's about the same age as them other little ones. They're only about 3 or 4 years old. grown in a 10 litre pot, and no, I haven't pruned the top of this one. So if you want them to get bigger faster, just don't prune them. There's a Japanese larch there. Again, I haven't pruned this. It's about 2 or 3 years old, that one. That was, I bought 5 seedlings, bare rooted, last year I think that was. And when they come to you, they're about 2 years old. Nice healthy little trees. So I'm going to let it grow for most of this year, maybe next year, and then I'll start cutting the top down a bit. Okay, so I'll show you a few more. I've got some larch here and a pine in the middle. I'm just growing these to thicken up at the moment. They're getting really big now. And believe it or not, they were no thicker than this when I planted them in these, well, not these pots, but and that was only about 3 years ago. So within that time, they've got that thick. But I haven't pruned them. I've just been upgrading the pots. I did a video last year on repotting these. Let this car go past. Okay, sorry about that. Big tractor just went past. So where was I? These larches and pines, which I've just been growing in here and repotting. I exposed a bit of surface root last year. It looks like something's been scraping off more. But this one in the middle here is the pine, and you can see how thick that's got. Just letting it grow in a big pot. And I've got various other trees. So I've just pulled this willow out. It's another good example of how to grow these in pots. So this was a cutting, believe it or not. It was a lot smaller than that. It was only a small cutting. But I let it grow for a good year or so. And then I cut it there. And then this year I've let it grow again. And just recently I cut the ends of each branch off, and as you can see, that's encouraged more branching. So I'm still letting it grow big to thicken up, but I'm keeping it under control. If I had just left this, it would probably be about 10 foot tall one now. And another good example, these birch seedlings that we put in this pot, we put 5 in there, and I tied them together, hoping they'll merge. And I've been pruning them back, keeping them under control. But what I want to show you is the difference. These seedlings here in the ground are the same age as them ones, but they've just been allowed to grow. So you can see how thick the trunk's got. They're 2 year old compared to these. They've still got quite thick in there, but you can see the growth's not as vigorous. These have got unlimited supply of nutrients in the ground, basically, and they can spread their roots out and grow like mad. So the quickest way to thicken a tree is to put it in the ground, but failing that, just keep putting it in a bigger pot. Keep it under control, otherwise you'll have to be repotting it at least once a year into a bigger pot because it will start suffering. Here's another comparison for you. 2 hazelnut trees, both the same age. One I've put into a little bonsai pot, and the other is in a 10-litre pot. So just look at the difference in vigour and the size of them. Even though I have been pruning this one, you can see, maybe you can't, but there is a prune mark there. So I do intend on making that bonsai as well, but same age tree, kept in a little tiny pot and kept in a large pot, and I'd get even more growth if it was in the ground. It's sending up suckers from the roots here. Didn't know hazel did that. You can also see how much more green that one is because it's got more nutrients. Probably need to feed some of my trees about now. Another thing I wanted to mention is soil and feeding. So all of my trees are grown in a mixture of just compost and either gravel or perlite. Even the bonsai ones. They're in a tray of water at the moment because they keep drying out. Feeding I normally forget to do, so I think I've only fed this lot once this year, right at the beginning of the year. It will make them grow faster, but they won't die if you don't feed them, as long as you keep them watered. More seedlings at the back there. And various other trees which I've salvaged. Little oak trees that we salvaged in a previous video I did on them. All doing well in their pots. The main advantage of planting in the ground, obviously you get better, faster growth, but you don't have to water them. Bigger the pot, the less water you have to give them as well. So it depends on your free time. If you've got time to keep them in smaller pots, you'll need to water them a lot more. That larch needs a bigger pot soon because it keeps drying out, and I've had to put a rock on it because the wind blows it straight off because it's quite top heavy now. These little hawthorns, that one and that one, were both grown from seed, or seedling shall I say. I didn't plant the seed, it just appeared in a pot. I put a piece of wire on this one, or 2 pieces, because it was quite hard to bend, even though it was only young. And other than that, I've just cut the top off at some point and let it grow. Well, that one I salvaged. This was on the side of a road, got cut down to that height every year, about there. So the tops got all the growth, and this bottom bit was all buried in grass. That was just poking out, getting trimmed and trimmed. So it's made quite a mess at the top there. So I'm letting more grow down here. And down here I've got some more little seedlings I thought I'd just show you. If you've got a lot of small seedlings, it's easier sometimes to plant a load of them in a bigger pot and just let them go for a couple of years. Okay, you'll have to separate them at some point, but if you're bonsaiing them, you're going to be root potting them anyway. So in here I've got 5 Japanese maple seedlings, and I'll let these grow for the first year or so, and I've just recently cut them back, and then I'll let them grow for another year or two and do the same thing. And I've got little oak seedlings here, so what you can do is you can put a piece of wire on them when they're little, get some nice shape in there, and then just leave them to grow. Keep an eye on the wire, because it will bite in really quickly when they're young. So that's a year old, or 2 year old almost, oak seedling. And again, I've got oaks, there's a Japanese maple in there. They will grow at different rates. Some will stay smaller for much longer. Every now and then you'll get one which just grows like mad. It's the same as with people. They all grow at different rates, and they have slightly different leaves and stuff like that. There's I think that's about 3 or 4 years old, this seedling. Japanese maple. Was allowed to grow up until last year, and I've chopped it there, and that's made it bush out like mad. And I've just been tipping the ends of the long branches. You can see it's grown more now, so this is what we want, as many branches as possible to work with in the future. Okay, so I hope you found that video useful. If you've got any other questions, just leave a comment down below. Just remember, I'm not a bonsai expert. I'm starting out in bonsai, but I've been growing trees in pots for years and years. So you've got to know how to keep them alive in the pots. The main thing is watering. Just make sure they're watered, especially during the summer. In the winter, don't water them. Hardly water at all up until it starts getting really warm, and then just make sure they don't dry out. Don't let them sit in water over winter because the roots will rot. But other than that, feed every 2 or 3 months or more often. Depends on the feed and the tree. But like I said, water is the most important thing when they're in pots, because they can dry out and die really quickly. So, anyway, thanks for watching everyone. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one.